race has now officially started, and in just a moment here, once the stream catches up, we'll see what everyone's up to here. So, looks like we have a Cyan. Cyan can be quite powerful in this randomizer. To bring him up early on, those sword techs go a lot quicker, so that'll be quite nice for our many runners here. Got a little deliberation over where to go up on Vamp's side here. Meanwhile, Drew and Scott are just going to go right into Narsh and pick up some easy loot here, it looks like. And we've got Vamp in there right behind as well. There's a Hyper Wrist over for Drew. That'll sell for a decent amount of coin if you don't want to use the relic. Otherwise, it's just been a few consumables so far. There's a Mega Elixir in the classroom. That'll be quite nice to have as a lifeline for our runners here. Yeah, everyone looking around and looting Narsh right now. Got a fake mustache in the clock inside Arvis's house. If you find Realm and you know how to use control, that could be quite nice. And here we are, Scott going after the big. See if we got anything nice here. A lot of consumables, Rage Ring for Umaro, and looks like that's going to be it. Nothing too exciting treasure-wise this early on, but some of those things should at least sell for decent money if we see what our runners decide to see what's for sale here. You can see those X potions already selling for 4,000. Just some generic middle to high-end gear in the armor shop, looks like. Some good consumables on sale. No dried meat, which is something everyone will usually keep an eye out for. Got relic shop down on Scott's side. Nothing too great there. There is an Atlas armlet for sale. That'll be nice for your physical characters later on. Weapon store. Nothing too outrageous. Hawkeye might be nice early on. Looks like Drew's electing to pick up a few skeins, and if Drew happens to find Shadow along the way here. Vamp's going to pick up that crystal sword to give his attacks a little bit of oomph early on here. There was an Atma weapon for sale as well, but Atma weapon sadly isn't particularly great unless you really overlevel your party. Oh, look at this. We've got Drew find some enhancers for sale down in Albrook. Very, very nice weapon, both for defense and that hefty +7 to magic. Looks like you can buy snow mufflers in Albrook as well. They're ridiculously expensive, but that is one of the very, very best pieces of armor in the game. There was also a Katana Soul sighting inside the trap chest at Narsh. If you really want to, you could try to defeat him for an offering. Got a couple of goblins down there for Scott. Those are a higher level enemy. And looks like the first check that we're going to see over on Vamp's side is going to lead to Realm. Just have to see what sort of opposition there is here. And looks like it's going to be Dullahan. This might be a little tricky at level 5, but the boss is also scaled to the party, so that could help. Oh no, level question mark Pearl, just an instant wipe there. That's no good. Got Drew looting through South Figaro as well as Rav. couple high-end consumables and a Thunder Rod might help out in a boss fight later on to smash that over something. We've got Scott inside of Figaro Castle selling a few things off. And looks like Drew's going to pick up those experience eggs for a little bit of a boost to leveling. Scott has found some warp stones inside Figaro Castle. Those are always great for moving around very quickly. We've got Ravlin continuing to loot South Figaro. Inside of Thamasa now is Vampstar. Nothing particularly great on sale in the weapon and armor shops, unfortunately. And nothing too high-end in the consumable shop either. Going to check the relic shop as well here, as Rav continues to loot South Figaro. No particularly amazing treasures yet for most of our runners, it looks like. Looks like Scott's going to be checking out South Figaro as well now. We've got Drew inside the Returner's Hide, looking for more treasure, trying to find something to jumpstart the beginning of the seed. We've got an Aegis Shield up there for Ravlin Bay. That'll help out quite a bit with survivability. Vampstar's inside the Burning House right now. This is a check that will lead to a character or an Esper, and the fights in here, not too difficult, and can give pretty good experience yield as you're going through, so expect his two old men to get a little more powerful from this venture. Looks like Scott wanted to get a quick tutorial about relics there. You can talk to the shopkeep from the side and skip that, though. Drew, inside of the Returner's base, found two very nice accessories, a hero ring and an earring. Those boost damage of all sorts. Those are fantastic. Looks like we have Ravlin inside of Zozo. Going to be heading up the mountain here. That is a Cyan-related check. Not enough money to purchase that Rustrid, unfortunately. We've got Drew landing at Doma Castle, so Drew is going to see... No, Drew's going to look for a battle first here, see what's up there. Doesn't look like Strago had any particularly great lures to start with, which is unfortunate. We've got some problems for Vamp here. Those balloons are starting to explode. Mercifully, that one was already damaged pretty good, so Cyan is going to survive there, but this fight could get desperate pretty quickly here if things don't go well for him. Ravlin discovering that Realm is available inside Doma Castle, but pretty soon is going to see that it's Dullahan, and we'll see if Rav attempts to battle the boss here. There's that level question mark Pearl for Rav. Misses his team, not having the money digit ending in 1 as did Vampstar earlier on. Trying to confuse the boss is Ravlin. Unfortunately, that's not going to take against Dullahan. But it looks like Rav's going to make an attempt of getting past this, bust out some of its nastier attacks yet. Going to try Step Mine here. This early in the run, it's not going to be very impressive, though, unfortunately. There is Ice 3, and that's going to do it for Ravlin's attempt to recruit Realm. Dullahan claims another runner here, and now Drew has found Dullahan. We'll see if Drew has something on hand. Looks like Drew's going to try to smash that Thunder Rod over his head here. We'll see if that's going to be enough damage to get it done. Nice 4-digit hit there, but even though Dullahan is only at, I believe, level 5 right now, it's still going to have a little bit more juice in it than that. Need to get a little bit more damage in there before it wipes the party with one of those nasty high-end ice spells. Boss heals itself, which is not unexpected. It's programmed to do that once its HP is below a certain threshold, which, since it's a very low level, is basically always going to happen. Trying to use that sketch command there, very interesting. Looks like Rav is going to try to battle Dullahan again here. And Scott having a peek around South Figaro, still looking for more treasure to help him get along his way here. Looks like a attempt at a level 4 flare down on Drew's side, but that's not the correct level here. Two of our runners still battling Dullahan, Scott still exploring South Figaro, and Vamp still getting swole inside the burning house. Big Holy Spell is going to knock Strago out up on Ravlin's side, but it's better than a multi-targeted Ice 3. Speaking of, Drew just got hit with that, and his fight is over. So Dullahan giving 3 of our 4 racers the business early on here. Ravlin still hanging on here. Ice 2 spell. Cyan's still alive, barely alive, only has 4 HP left here. Rav's going to try to heal up and keep. One of our runners appears to be experiencing some technical difficulty on the stream side of things. Note we've got Scott. We've got a duplicate. So at the moment, it looks like Scott and Vamp are duplicated until we've gotten Scott's situation sorted out here, as Ravlin is defeated by Dullahan yet again. Very unfortunate here. Perhaps an opportunity for Vampstar to pull out into the lead here. He's got some nice experience gains for both of his old men and about to see what the boss is inside of the burning house. And it's Funbaba. There's quite a few different Funbabas that can appear in the randomizer, so it'll be difficult to say which Funbaba this is until we see a little bit more of what it can do. All forms can bring out a very deadly 1000 guaranteed damage Blowfish. That's a problem this early. And those Volt 2 spells, nothing to sneeze at either. No save point inside this area, so Vamp is going to have to try to fight on through. Drulith has elected to head over to Mount Zozo at this point after seeing that Dullahan's maybe just a little bit too much right now. And no, unfortunately, Vamp is going to get beaten down by Funbaba. A lot of nasty bosses early on in this seed. Looks like a little bit more difficult than your average seed so far. We've got Ravlin heading up to the top of Narsh. Maybe going to try to see what the reward from the Kefka battle is. At the top of Mount Zozo, we do have a character for Drew, though. We have discovered Gao. Gao will unlock a few more areas to explore and look for more characters and espers, and on top of that, depending on what rages he starts with, he could be extremely powerful. We'll just have to wait and see. Now it's Vamp's turn to have a look around South Figaro to try to loot and buy better gear. Try to find something to get him going here. Ravlin is going to attempt the Kefka battle at Narsh. These mooks shouldn't be too much of a problem. They are only level 3 monsters, as Rav hasn't completed any checks yet. Should be fodder for Cyan to carve up and gain a bit of experience on the way to whichever boss lies in wait. And you can see why those warp stones were such a big find for one of our runners. We're watching Drew have to manually walk all the way out of Mount Zozo and then all the way out of Zozo properly. If you have a warp stone, you can just snap that and you're back to the world map instantly, saving a ton of time in a race. Alright, so Drewlith is going to head over to Tzen in the World of Ruin. There's no event that will happen here without Sabin, but going to check some more stores. Nothing too great in that relic shop at a quick glance. And looks like Scott has checked the armor store inside of World of Balance Tzen. Tiger Fangs on sale, quite expensive and perhaps a bit of an overrated weapon. Nothing great inside World of Ruin Tzen shops either, it looks like. Definitely not. Scott, however, did pick up the Esper in Tzen World of Balance. I regret to inform our viewers that I did not catch which Esper it was, but Scott does have one Esper, so we've got 2 checks completed between all 4 of our racers at the 17-minute mark. A finding of Gao for Drew, and a finding of an Esper for Scott. And I'm being told by the folks upstairs that it seems like the Esper in question was Carbuncle. Meanwhile, Rab's still hacking his way through Imperial troopers here. This is going to get some much-needed experience on Cyan. Let's just hope that it's a defeatable boss so this progress isn't lost. Yeah, Carbuncle is definitely what it was. It has a warp spell, which is quite useful on it. Vampstar, looting the Returner's hideout, is going to pick up those earrings and hero ring in the treasure room. Very nice accessories there. And over on Drew's side, you are seeing that Gao is in fact a little bit on the powerful side here. He did start with that Retainer Rage, which has a very interesting special that I'm sure some of you noticed already. It's General Leo's famous shock command. Very powerful. Well, Drew is going to go check the shops in World of Ruin South Figaro, and looks like he also wants a tutorial on how to use relics today. Cyan still carving up a path of destruction through the Empire's forces here. Over on Ravlin's side. Scott is going to land, looks like at World of Ruin Narsh. Haven't seen him. It checks shops inside of South Figaro. And it's going to be a battle against the Cranes for Cyan here up on Ravlin's side. Those spells will hit pretty hard, but the cranes are a low enough level that might be able to take them out with a couple of dispatches each, I dare say. Vamp Star is going to land at World of Ruin Zozo, so I think it's time for Vamp to pick up their Rustrid and head up the mountain. So should be a Gao within the next 3 or 4 minutes for Vamp Star. And we're going to have another attempt at Cyan to cut down these cranes. It's going to be a little dicey at this point. Those guards are getting ever so closer to Ben, and if they get up to Ben, it's a game over. So really going to have to motor down there after dispatching these troops to keep it going. We've got Drew looking at some shops inside Jador. Cheap shurikens up for sale there. Not interested at the moment without having Shadow. White capes and wall rings available inside the relic shop, however. Those are both pretty nice to have in lots of situations, I have to say. Scott fighting some battles inside World of Ruin Narshe here. These dark forces could be quite nice. Their roulette not panning out the way he wanted it to. So going to be a tough finish from here. Per a win, we'll get to see how much those dark forces actually have for HP. It's about 900. So that's about 6 swings from Cyan, and he's already got that death counter out of his head. So Scott is wisely going to flee from this battle. Drew, meanwhile, has landed on the Veldt, has Gao in tow, and presumably has found some dried meat. Drew going to fight and defeat these enemies with Gao's powerful rage. Enemies on the Veldt do not give experience though, and there's only certain formations in which the hidden Veldt character or person with an item can show up. A pincer attack is not one of them though. It needs to be the regular battle formation, otherwise Gao or the equivalent of cannot return on the Veldt. So this formation here with a single Lobo, and there it is. It's not going to be a character, but Drew's going to feed that imp some meat and get a reward. And it's going to be a Magicite, the Magicite Unicorn acquired for Drewlith, as Vampstar makes it to the top of Mount Zozo and picks up Gao. So that is Drew's second Esper after purchasing Carbuncle inside of Tizen. Requirements for entering the final dungeon are 7 characters and 10 Espers total. So we've still got a little bit of work to do for all runners at the moment here. Scott takes a try at Katana Soul, and Katana Soul just threw him aside like yesterday's trash, unfortunately. Ravlin still fighting his way through all these soldiers in Narshe. The good news is that a death at the boss here is not a game over, it just sends your party back to the start. So with enough patience and perseverance, Ravlin could kill every single guard in this Narshe battle and get enough levels on Cyan to be able to take out those cranes. Vampstar also having to take the long walk back down Mount Zozo and out of town. But the good news is that he's picked up Gao, so that'll give him a few more options in terms of exploration and unlocks here. Drewlith is now checking out the maze in the World of Balance. Perhaps going to go have a look at that burning house, and we know the boss in there is Spoonbaba, so still somewhat of a tall order this early on in the game. Alright, another attempt at the cranes here for Ravlin. You can see even those low-level spells hitting quite hard. Now has Quadra Slam though. So going to be able to do a little bit more damage per turn than a Dispatch. It's not enough to no, it is enough to one-shot the Crane. Ravlin should take it out this time. Tech Barrier goes up. Ravlin knows that gives auto shell, so we're going to use Dispatch and just ignore that, and this should finish off Crane number 2. Well done. So Ravlin is going to complete the Kefka at Narsh sequence. Let's see what the reward's going to be. As Vampstar has hopped down the Serpent Trench. So it's going to be a Minerva for Ravlin, which is one of the absolute best pieces of equipment in the entire game. And Cyan can use it. So Ravlin now suddenly able to fight things on a decent level here. Minerva unfortunately isn't going to be considered progress, but a very high-end item like that can definitely make the seed a lot easier to traverse. The check Vampstar is doing right now for going down the Serpent Trench is not a difficult check. There's no boss to overcome. You just simply have to get to the end here. It's faster to take the left path at both junctions, but there is a treasure box if you go right at each one. Vampstar also making some good use of Gao here. We've got a few powerful rages on Gao early on, always nice to see. Gao unfortunately got stoked by that ass pick, but the fight is won and Vampstar can continue. Down on Drew's side, Gao going all General Leo on that group of balloons, and they're gone. Over on Scott's side, we have the top of Mount Zozo, so Scott has also recruited Gao now. Ravlin, back inside of Doma Castle, is going to make another attempt at Dullahan. With that Minerva on hand on Cyan, though, he is immune to ice attacks, so this should be enough for him to finally get past this troublesome boss. And down on Drew's side, we have a battle against Funbaba. Drew has wisely picked up on some super balls. The damage they do is quite random, but when you're at a low level, it's usually going to be better than anything else that you can pump out. Drew making good use of that Carbuncle effort, gets a Reflect Shield up. That will at least cause Funbaba's lightning spells to reflect off. They will heal the boss, but that will keep him alive. And look at that, Funbaba's level is currently divisible by 4, so Strago's level 4 flare hitting like a truck there. Very well played on Drew's side. And for going through the Serpent Trench, Vampstar's reward is the Fixed Dice. A very random weapon. Really want that offering for Vamp here to make those Fixed Dice actually fantastic. Funbaba is down on Drew's side. So the Burning House complete there, making good use of Strago's questionable starting lore, but level 4 flare getting it done. Ravlin still battling against Dullahan here, but should be relatively safe with that Minerva equip. And we've got a Terra discovery over on Drewlith's side. Terra is usually one of the best characters to find in the randomizer. Not only is she generally the most powerful character, she also has 5 separate checks, so a lot of exploration opening up for Drewlith right now. And Ravlin finally defeats Dullahan here on his 3rd attempt at the fight, that Minerva being the key difference here. Cyan takes it out, and so Ravlin is going to be able to keep Realm on his team now. Vamp taking a little look around World of Balance Mobliz, see what we have at the shops here. Clearly checking for that dried meat since Vamp now has Gao in tow. And you can see Drew immediately slapping on an experience egg and a gem box onto Terra, knowing full well how powerful she can be, and Drew is going to head to the Esper Cave. It's a nice, easy check. There's no forced boss here. And first chest has Marble Shoes, one of the very nicest relics in the entire game, giving the player auto haste, shell, protect, and regain. Very nice. We've got Scott heading to the auction house, and there is at least one Esper here, as we're seeing on screen. Esper is going to cost Scott a hefty 2,000 GP, or 20,000, my mistake. And it's the Esper Ragnarok. Spells are randomized though, so that is not just a straight up, oh, you have Ultima now. Unfortunate for Scott, but it may yet still have some good spells on it. Vampstar has found the Imp on the Veldt and has picked up the Unicorn Esper, so that's one Esper for Vampstar. Ravlin heading to Zozo now to do the Rustgrid quest and eventually pick up Gap. And Scott's still looking for another Esper here at the auction house. That time only finding cards, so just going to reset and perhaps try again here. And Vampstar is now going to head back to the burning house. Saw Vamp in here earlier on. Vamp knows that Funbaba's at the end. 3 characters in tow. Probably thinks that it should be fine now. There's the second Esper at the auction house for Scott, as Drew picks up a Ragnarok. Oh my. One of the finest weapons in existence there. We've got Drew at the end of Esper Cave. We just see a ghost, so it's either going to be a high-end item or another Esper for Drew here. As Drav picks up Gao, Drew gets the Esper Bahamut, and Scott bought another Esper at the auction house. I must admit, I missed the name of the Esper both times it was displayed, and it looks like it's going to be Triton. It has a warp spell, which is handy. And on Drew's side, we saw that Bahamut did have Flare. Pretty high level spell. The animation's quite long on it though, and there's usually better options in Erase, but sometimes you just have to take what you can get. Drew now looting the big treasure room inside the Imperial base. We've seen an Aegis shield already. Fantastic loot right there. Single warp stone, not bad either for some quick moves later on. A pack of earrings, always good, and a Tempest if you're willing to gamble on getting some Wind Slash procs on your physical strike. Ravlin is now checking out World of Balance Jador, having a look at those shops there. We know there was some good stuff at the Relic store here. Finds the dried meat. So Ravlin has dried meat in hand now and can go pick up the Esper that was on the Veldt. There's a gem box for Vampstar inside one of the treasure rooms inside the burning house. Elixir in the other. Hopefully Vamp is able to defeat Funbaba and keep the loot there this time. Drewlith taking a moment to battle some guards there for some easy experience on the way out of the Imperial camp. And looks like Scott wants another Triad Katana Soul here. Wants that offering. Vamp is back at Funbaba with a vengeance now. Gao's, in general, Leo Shock doing a very significant amount of damage there. 4 figures, nothing wrong with that. Also has Gao wearing a Genji glove, so using 2 weapons there. So those off turns with physicals still doing a pretty decent amount of damage. Ravlin picks up the Unicorn Espert from the Velt, cashing in that dried meat with Gao in tow. And Drulith is going to head back to Doma Castle here for a rematch against Dullahan. So if Drew can pull this off, this will be Drew's 5th character recruiting Realm. Scott is defeated once again by Katana Soul. Ravlin is now going to be heading down the Serpent Trench. Vampstar still plugging away at Funbaba, this fight going much better than the first time. Drulith going after Dullahan is going to snap that Thunder Rod now. This should be a very hefty amount of damage. Good 2,000 there. Dullahan still kicking. Gao's Tempest procs a Wind Slash. Pretty nice, but only a single enemy, so it's not going to be too much more powerful than a standard physical. Vampstar defeats and in just a moment, Terra's going to come to his rescue, so that'll be character number 4 for Vampstar. Scott also having a look at the Velt now, looks like. Runs into a couple of goblins here. Higher end enemy. Be much nicer if the Velt gave experience, but unfortunately it doesn't. So Scott's just going to have to defeat these enemies and hope that that imp shows up for him to get his Esper. Terra recruited for Vampstar. Dullahan defeated for Drew, so Dullahan has recruited Realm. So between all of our runners, we're starting to assemble our heroes pretty good here. Still pretty low on the Esper count all around, but with Terra and Realm unlocked for a couple of our runners here, there's a lot more available options. As we see Drew parking outside of Esper Mountain now, looks like. Vamp still tweaking gear just a little bit here inside of Temesa, but is on the way out. Scott having a little bit of difficulty fighting these goblins. Unfortunately, level divisible by 3, so he is going to be a little... Ravlin, meanwhile, carving up Path of Death and Destruction throughout the Serpent Trench. Should be picking up that fixed dice very shortly. Vampstar is headed back to World of Bounce Narsh to pick up some useful consumables. And Scott is defeated by the 2 goblins on the Velt. Ouch. That'll send Scott back a little bit there. You have to think Scott's going to still try to pick up that item on the Velt. Vamp is going to battle the Welk boss, which, oh my lord, it's Inferno Striker and Rough. This could be very bad. This is one of the more difficult bosses to run into early. This is not what you want to see here, folks. And it looks like the boss on Esper Mountain is in fact Ultros. Not the one that's normally there, though. Big, beefy crit from Terra's Ragnarok for Drew, and that's going to do it for Ultros, so this check is done. And Drew is going to be rewarded with the Magicite Starlet. That should put Drew's Magicite count up to 4 now. Starlet not having the greatest spells in the world, unfortunately. Vampstar still trying to battle his way through Inferno, Striker, and Rough. Gets a decent roll on the fixed dice there, nothing outrageous. And right behind Drew is Ravlin, also going to be heading over to Esper Mountain. Drew elects to check some of the chests here on Esper Mountain, is getting rewarded with a hero ring. Very great accessory. Vampstar trying to sandbag his way through this Inferno fight. Scott now inside World of Balance Mobliz, trying to find some nice purchasables. Wall rings and earrings were available at the relic shop, but elected not to buy them at this particular time. And there it is. A last-second victory for Vamp over Inferno. Very well done. Very clutch. And Vamp is going to get another Esper, the Esper Stray. I'm going to take a moment to revive his wounded party here, and then we'll see what that Esper does momentarily. So, Stray has Quick and Meteor, a very powerful Esper. Very nice find. Drew also checking the shops inside of World of Balance Mobliz now. We know the main attraction here was the relic shop with the wall rings and the earrings. Ravlin has defeated Opera Ultros inside of Esper Mountain, so Ravlin is now going to pick up the Starlet Magicite, which, not terrible, has a couple of level 2 spells, Cure and Bolt. Cure 2 probably being the nicer of the two, because you have to think there's going to be some better offensive magic options before long. We did in fact see Flare on Bahamut, and the Stray Magicite that we just saw also had Meteor and probably more importantly, Quick. Scott battling some dark forces on the Veldt. Not an easy battle to overcome. But if he can get through here, Strago is going to learn some new spells, possibly some great ones. Vampstar is going to now attempt the Kefka and Narsh battle, which we know has a boss of a couple of cranes. At this point, this should not be an issue for Vampstar at all. Drulith, also inside Narsh, is going to be running into Inferno now. Vampstar got past this boss by the skin of his teeth. We'll see how Drulith does. We have some dancing old men down on Scott Tatuz's side, but he's still in the fight against these Dark Force as Cyan dispatches himself with Dispatch. And we have Ravlin heading to Doma Castle to go through Cyan's Dream. I was waiting for one of our runners to do this since we started with Cyan. Cyan's Dream, on top of having some guaranteed progression in it, also will unlock Cyan's entire Sword Trek tree, making him quite the powerhouse in the randomizer, where his Sword Techs are already sped up considerably. We'll see what the bosses are, though. There are 2 mandatory bosses on the route, and that could make things interesting. First one is Dataluma. That is a complete non-issue for Ravlin. This fight should be over. Drulith now making his way up Esper Mountain. So momentarily Drulith is going to find that Opera Ultros and make mincemeat out of it. Inside the Kefka and Narsh battle, Vampstar is electing to fight a few battles on the way to gain some additional experience for his grumpy old men and new recruit Terra. And as predicted, Opera Ultros lasted about 10 seconds for Drulith, so that's down. That'll be another Magicite in the pile, putting him at, I believe, 5 Magicites and 5 characters now. Dataluma's been easily dispatched on Ravlin's side, as mentioned, so Ravlin now moving through the train section of Cyan's Dream, and as we can see there, we saw Mog jumping around, so Mog is going to be the recruitable character at the end of this, even though there is still an item to pick up inside of the throne room. And interesting tidbit I will mention here, that chest that Ravlin just got, you can hit the switch twice, and then that will move the box right next to you instead of having to run all the way around. Hot tip for all you young players out there. Drulith now is going to be heading to the top of Zozo Town proper with Terra in tow. You can pick whatever item, Esper, character, etc. is at the top. Ravlin inside the puzzle room of Cyan's Dream, the train room where you have to move everything around just a little bit. Nothing too exciting in that treasure chest, just a Kaiser. Vampstar has cut his way through the first swath of guards inside the Kefka and Narish battle, and is just going to keep fighting his way through here. Wants a little bit more experience before getting to the boss, which we know is going to be the Cranes. Finally, Scott has found that imp on the Veldt. There's the dried meat, and there's the Unicorn Esper, the disappointing Unicorn Esper. Drulith, at the top of Zozo, finds the boss. It's the Piranhas leading to Rizipus. This is another snooze fest. Will, unfortunately, take Drew a little over a minute here, as this fight is on a timer. You have to wait a full minute while the Piranhas are out there before you can kill a group of them and have the boss Rizipus spawn. Rider battle for Vampstar right now, so going to be fighting those 2 Cranes at Kefka's spot momentarily. Oh, but a sneak attack by a Fidor and a Trooper. I'm sure this is going to be just the worst thing that has ever happened to Vampstar. His plans are ruined forever. Oh, never mind, it's gone. Scottata, heading... Gonna try to defeat this Dataluma now that he's acquired more power for his characters. Level's still a little bit on the low side, but has much better gear and should be able to power through, I would dare say. Coming to the end of Cyan's Dream now is Ravlin Bay as Vampstar engages his Cranes. We've got the Dream Stooges at the end of Cyan's Dream. How appropriate. I forget what rage it is that has Landslide, but Landslide is a very, very powerful attack. It's effectively Flare 2 inside the game's code with a slightly faster animation than regular Flare. Nothing wrong with that. Scott battling Dataluma again. 1 Crane down for Vampstar. Should be just moments before the second one goes down as well. Drulith, after having picked up Locke at the top of Zozo, is now going to head into Figaro Cave to beat up whatever boss is in Tunnel Armor's spot for the next check. There's Vamp's Minerva for defeating the Kefka at Narish. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very great piece of defensive equipment. It's not progression, but it certainly gives you a lot more staying power. Ravlin, unfortunately, being defeated by the Stooges there, so gonna have to load up the save and try this battle again. Scott still hanging tough against Dataluma as Drulith discovers Goddess, one of the more difficult bosses in the game, one of the 3 statues. So we've seen a lot of tough bosses early on in this seed so far. Ravlin is electing to battle some randoms here and gain a few levels to increase his chances of defeating those tricksy stooges. Vampstar is now also heading to World of Balanced Doma Castle, try to defeat that Dullahan in Recruit Realm. Skatata was unfortunately defeated and is electing to leave the area for now. Drulith still making good use of this Carbuncle spell. That Reflect on all party members can come quite in handy in a couple of places, so all those bolt spells from the Goddess will be reflected. They will heal the boss a bit, but more importantly, they won't be killing Drew's characters. Vampstar now battling against Dullahan. Vampstar still has Gao set up with the Genji Glove and the Shock Rage. Trying to gamble a little bit on the Fixed Dice with Cyan. Fixed Dice can pay off, but without that offering, you're really, if you'll pardon the obvious pun, rolling the dice. Drulith again making incredibly good use out of Strago's level 4 flare attack, knowing the way that the enemy's levels go up as you progress through the seed, is able to make short work of Goddess. Strago very powerful over on Drulith's side right now. And Drulith has discovered Sabin inside of Figaro Cave, so that is 7 characters for Drulith now, and Sabin opening up 5 more checks. The world, literally Drulith's oyster right now, just on an Esper hunt, needs 5 more to be able to enter Kefka's tower. And Vampstar has defeated Dullahan and is going to recruit Realm, so that'll be 5 characters for Vampstar. Ravlin continuing to battle randoms to gain some power to overcome those stooges. Scott is now trying the Battle at Narshe. Should not be too difficult for Scott to get this one done, since we know it's just a couple of cranes at the end there. Just has to get through these troops here. Looks like the troops are about their normal level based on the amount of damage that they're doing. Be nice for Scott to gain some levels en route here. Vampstar has headed to Esper Mountains, so we know this is going to be pretty easy there. Going to pick up an Esper after defeating Opera Ultros in very quick time here. Drulith has found a Landworm, one of the highest experience-yielding critters in the game, so he's going to take that thing out there. There's a nice 7,000 experience for the party. And we just saw his Terra pick up both Life and Flare. So Drulith looking very powerful right now with many options at his disposal in terms of both ability to defeat enemies and explore the game. Scott still hacking his way through these Imperial troops inside the Kefket Narsh battle. Ravlin ready to try another attempt at the Three Stooges. We can see that they each have about 5,000 HP based on that Pearl Wind casted by Curly up at the top. Still making great use of that Landslide Rage. That's going to do about 2,000 damage. So a few of those and some of these will go down quick. Pretty good roll on the fixed dice by Strago there as well. Drulith at this point knows that he's just on an Esper hunt, so he's going to head to World of Ruin Narsh and fight Tritok. Now, the special thing about Tritok in this randomizer is that even though the boss is random, you are always guaranteed to get an Esper at this location. So that will put Drew up to 6 Espers, assuming he can defeat the boss here. Vampstar looting the treasure room inside the Imperial base. We know the treasures of highlight there were the Aegis Shield, the Earrings, and the Tempest. And then Vampstar is going to presumably go through the cave to the sealed gate and pick up the Esper at the end, which, if memory serves, was Bahamut. Ravlin defeats the top Stooge. That's the important one to get rid of first, as it likes to cast Life 2 on the others as you defeat them. So that's done. We've got Sir Behemoth for Drulith up at the Tritok spot here. Have to watch out for those deadly space rocks, but with the very nice Magic Evade gear that Drulith has in tow, should be able to pull this through. You get the first form down, and the second one is instantly killable via a Revivify, or a Phoenix down, or a Life Spell, or your choice, honestly. One Stooge left for Ravlin, it's just Larry. Drulith dropping that Bahamut summon with Strago for a nice 4,000 damage. Here come those space rocks, though. That'll make things a little bit interesting here. You can see that even at a low level for the bosses, they do hit quite hard. Terra is going to take a little dirt nap there, but it doesn't matter at this point, as the first form is gone. So an easy win from here for Drew. And Ravlin has dispatched the Stooges, recruits Mog, and has unlocked Cyan's ultimate sword text, making him quite the powerhouse, and has discovered the Magicite Zone Seek in the throne room. And Zone Seek unfortunately looks like a dud, just has Cure 2 and Ice, Cure 2 already known to all of our runners at this point. The Seraphim Esper from the first check, however, quite nice, having Bolt 3, even though it's only at a 1% learn rate. Level 3 magic is quite powerful. Vampstar right now about halfway through the Esper Cave. Have to hope that Vampstar goes for the treasure room, because we know that there's a Ragnarok in there. And another hot tip for people new to this randomizer, the route that Vampstar took to make the bridge to get to the treasure room, all you need to do is step on that right switch and retreat, and it will open up for whatever reason. And there's the Ragnarok for Vampstar, fantastic weapon. World of Ruin Narsh check from picking that. I must admit that I unfortunately did not see what the choice was between item and Esper, as there's quite a lot going on right now. Ravlin is going to battle the Nightshade enemies here. So you have to think that at some point in the future, Ravlin might be considering picking up that Nightshade Rage to trivialize some of the endgame bosses with Gao. Vampstar finishes up the Esper Cave and is going to get the Esper at the end. I believe it was Bahamut. Yes, it was. Skatata still battling the Imperial forces at Narsh, on his way to fight some cranes. And I have received some info from the folks upstairs who are omnipresent. The choice in Narshe was either Fenrir Magicite or Behemoth Suit. So I'm going to assume that Drulith took the Magicite, because those are his requirements to get into Kefka's tower at this point. We now have Vampstar inside of World of Balance Zozo. Gonna head to the top, and we know at the top of World of Balance Zozo you can recruit Locke. Drulith doing a little bit of party wang jangling there to get everyone set up to learn things optimally. Ravlin still exploring Ozer's mansion inside the World of Ruin. Skatata still battling enemies inside the Kefka at Narshe battle. Going to probably take out the entire army, it looks like, at this point, and gain some levels on his two grumpy old men. And we now have Drew also entering the haunted house inside of Jidoor World of Ruin. Terra swinging that Ragnarok like a boss, procs flare, and you have to think that that painting is going to need to be recommissioned at this point. Yes. Ravlin about halfway through the haunted house now, and Ravlin is going to take the forced encounters underneath these chests. You fight a Soul Dancer and 4 Wild Cats. Can be great for building up your levels early on, for sure. And you can see Ravlin's advantage with Cyan's Sword Tech maxed out. Can just use Cleave, and this should cut all 5 of those enemies into pieces right away. I believe it does not work on that Soul Dancer, but a throw from the fixed dice should do it, especially if it's going to roll 3,000 damage. Vampstar is staring at a piranha right now, as is the tradition. Drulith is also electing to take some of the forced encounters inside Ozer's mansion for some good experience. And, well, he's got a Bahamut for that, so down they go. Not enough for that Soul Dancer, but a quick swing of the Ragnarok will do it, and you can see how potent the experience points gains are from those fights. That was 15,000 for each character. Only 10,000 up on Ravlin's side, the difference being that Drulith has more checks done, so the enemies are higher level on his end, meaning more experience per battle. Vampstar a tad too early on finishing off that group of piranhas, so is going to have to fight another quick 3. Not that it takes that long, but now here's Rizapis. Gao's using Shock. Well, Gao was a little confused because the enemies he wanted to use it on weren't there anymore, but it doesn't matter, Rizapus is gone. Ravlin has picked up all the experience from those optional fights and is now fighting the forced still life battle. Skatata still fighting Imperial troops for experience in Narshe, and Drulith also making his way through Ozer's mansion. At the top of Zozo now is Vampstar. Going to pick up both of these chests here. Nothing too outrageous in them. But now, hey, it's Locke. Locke unlocks things, like most characters do. It's pretty cool. Still life battle for Drew as well now. This is the last mandatory battle on the way to the boss inside Ozer's mansion. First to the boss between the two of them, of course, is going to be Ravlin, as he was the first one there. Vampstar heading into the training room for a quick heal. Oh, we've got a spicy chicken inside of Ozer's house. Do our players have stop? You can see Ravlin checking his magic list to see if he, at least on Gao, he does not. Does not have it on Strago. And does not have it on Cyan, so there will be no cheese against the spicy chicken here for Ravlin. Drulith takes the wrong door after the save point and is going to have to go through a little bit of the mansion again. Actually, it looks like Drulith may have done this on purpose to fight these force packs underneath the treasure chest to gain some more experience points. Vampstar inside of World of Ruin Narshe now is going to pick up that Cursed Shield. It takes 21 battles to uncurse in this seed. Cursed Shield, of course, when uncursed becomes the Paladin Shield, the single greatest defensive piece of equipment in the entire game, and also teaches Ultima as a passive one-time rate. And Vampstar putting that Cursed Shield on Strago. Looks like Vampstar is going to want to fight those requisite 21 battles to unlock the gloriousness that is the Paladin Shield. Drulith still fighting enemies inside of Owzer's Mansion for experience. Gets a pincer this time, but that should only be a very, very slight inconvenience. Ravlin still battling the spicy chicken at the end of Owzer's Mansion, and Skatata still beating up on the Imperial forces at Narshe to embiggen his grumpy old men. We now have Vampstar heading to World of Ruin Doma Castle, looks like. So Vampstar is also going to be heading through Cyan's Dream in a moment. And we know that will definitely power Cyan up. Ravlin has defeated the Spicy Chicken and is rewarded with the Magicite Palador. Palador does have Life 3 on it, which can be very handy in a pinch. Not necessarily a spell you want to be forced to rely on in a race, because that means that, well, things aren't going great in that particular battle, but Life 3 is absolutely a valuable lifeline to have in many situations. Vampstar picked the wrong door at first in Cyan's Dream, unfortunately, but with a Moogle Charm on, it's only a few seconds lost to go back and take the correct route to get all the Stooges in the right room and fight the boss. Drulith continues to make quick work out of those forced encounters in the mansion with Bahamut, making his party even more powerful. Vampstar has found the easy Dadaluma fight. First attack with Terra with that Ragnarok. Procs Flare, this might be a one-hit kill. Not quite. Not quite. Only needed a slight follow-up from Gao to finish it off. Dadaluma is down for Vampstar, so Vampstar is going to get an Esper for their trouble here, but they still have the rest of the dream to continue on and finish at this point. So Magicite Seraphim, which if you'll recall did have Bolt 3 on it, not a bad spell at all. We now have the Burning House up for Ravlin on his side of things. What annoying Funbaba, but you have to think given Ravlin's levels and gear on his characters, he's not going to have too much of an issue with that. Vampstar electing to use the lump of metal to check the treasure chest. It's a Blizzard Orb, very disappointing. Drulith now at the boss of Owzer's Mansion, so Drulith is going to have to battle that spicy chicken now as well. Drulith's level is actually high enough where that Atma weapon is actually doing some respectable damage. So Drulith electing to make Terra his fighter right now. And once again, Drulith, being very knowledgeable about the way the enemy's levels go up, is able to make very good use out of Strago's level 4 flare. We just saw a 6,000 damage hit there on this spicy chicken. interesting. With these big physicals from Terra, you have to think this fight's going to be over in short order. That was a 10,000 damage attack, all things considered. Ragnarok crit, flare proc, and then 2,000 more from the Ultima weapon. Very nice. And it's done. It's gone. That spicy chicken has been eaten. So there's the dream done for Vampstar. Just about. Just gonna have to go fight those stooges momentarily here. Ravlin, hanging on a victory screen inside of the burning house here. Ravlin, Earth to Ravlin, come back, buddy. We're waiting on you. Scott finally battling the rider inside of the Narsh battle here. And Drulith has headed to Jador, going to try to gamble on the auction house. We know that there are two Espers here, and there's one of them, the Esper Ragnarok. Finally, the cranes for Scott here. Scott perhaps wisely taking his time to gain some levels going through this area with so many forced encounters. It might not seem like the most effective way to do everything, but with the amount of experience that he's gotten for his two grumpy old men, he's not going to be forced to fight too much stuff from here on out. They're both at a very respectable level right now. Ravlin almost through the burning house to fight Funbaba at the end. Drulith is going to repeat the auction house and try to get yet another Esper there. Unfortunately, it's just a time-wasting imp robot. Meanwhile, Vampstar is fighting the three stooges there. Looks like has wisely prepared with relics ahead of time. Must have been a ribbon or something of the like on Terra there, otherwise that Delta attack would have been a instant death move. So very good there. Curly's down, so the rest of the stooges will fall in short order for Vampstar. And Scott the Tud defeats the Cranes completely handily. So that is it for the Narsh battle sequence for Scott. And Scott's going to pick up that Minerva. Still, Scott a little bit behind in terms of progression, but level's starting to look quite nice and has some pretty decent gear. Ravlin reaches the end of the burning house, so here's a Funbaba battle. Plenty of hit points on hand, so you don't have to worry about that potentially devastating Blowfish attack early on in the feed. And with Cyan at full power, you can use Sword Tech 7, and it's going to hit pretty darn hard. Drulith has picked up his other Esper from the auction house, looks like. So at this point, just trying to find the last Esper necessary to get into Kefka's Tower. Gonna go have a look at Mobliz, another Terra-centric check here, and see what we have in store. Not really sure what doing there, talking to all the people in the world, unless there's some sort of hint that the vast majority of us aren't aware of, perhaps? Ravlin easily defeats Funbaba inside the burning house, so Ravlin is now going to recruit Terra for the rest of it there. And as we can see, inside of Mobliz, there is a non-player character. 2 bosses necessary here, but it should lead until... Oh, we've got a Guardian here. This might be somewhat interesting. Drew looking quite powerful, though. Shouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I must apologize, loyal viewers. I need to excuse myself for just one moment. I will be right back with you in about 30 seconds. I apologize for my brief absence there. Drulith has picked up the Magicite Phoenix after defeating the two bosses inside of World of Ruin Mobliz. Phoenix appears to have a nice 3 spell on it, quite nice. Vampstar is battling the Goddess inside of the World of Balance, South Figaro Cave. Ravlin is making his way through the Esper Cave, and just picked up that very valuable Ragnarok. And we've got Skatata having a look around some shops inside of Nikea. Looks like Drulith is trying to find Doomgaze or the equivalent thereof for Drew's final Esper to get access into Kefka's Tower. It's a bold strategy, Cotton, shall we say, because Doomgaze is only on one possible tile of what is a pretty massive over. So expect to see Drew flying at a very slight angle like this for the next handful of minutes, unless we get a very lucky, quick Doomgaze encounter. Ravlin has finished up inside of the Esper Cave, all done there, and going to head on to their next destination after picking up that Bahamut Magicite. Skatata, going back, time for a grudge match against Dataluma down there. Vampstar doing a bit of Esper Wang jangling here to make sure that their characters all have the spells that they want to have learned. And Dullahan fight here for Skatata dodges the opening level question mark Pearl, and levels and skills looking quite nice. This should finally be the attempt in which Skatata defeats Dullahan and recruits Realm. Vampstar heading up the Leet River. Always a pretty good choice in these randomizers. There are some forced battles on the way, but the experience per level yield tends to be higher than a lot of other areas. So Leet River always a pretty good place to gain some quick levels here. Drulith has had enough of trying to find Doomgaze and is going to pick their way out of the burning house inside of Tizen World of Ruin. Doesn't take too long. we know that it's either an Esper or Knight, and we'll find out momentarily if Drew is able to enter Kefka's tower. Ravlin has discovered the Inferno, Striker, and Rough battle at the Whelp location inside a World of Balance Nourish, as Scott has defeated Dadaluma and recruited Realm to the party. Pretty nice landslide from Gao there up on Ravlin's side. That'll do a nice chunk of damage to Inferno, followed up by a holy casting, or Pearl, apologies, by Strago. You have to think that Ravlin's going to make pretty short work out of Inferno at this point. And no Esper for Drulith, so the search continues for that final Esper to enter Kefka's tower. Vampstar about halfway up the Leet River at this point, making mincemeat out of the enemies, going to gain some pretty good experience going up this way. Both claws down now on Ravlin's side. Looks like Ravlin has this Inferno fight very much under control, and yeah, there it is. 3,000 damage landslide is going to finish it off. So Drulith heading to the Imperial camp right now to see what lies here after quote-unquote only getting an economizer from going through the burning house. Economizer, for those not familiar with the game, is a relic that makes all spells cost single magic points. So, I don't need to tell you why that's useful, do I? Ravlin heading up the mountains of Narsh. Skatata inside the burning house. So Ravlin is going to be battling... wrong world. Ravlin is going to be seeing what the item is from checking versus Lone Wolf here. Again, no Esper for Drulith. So, looks like Drulith is going to go have a look at the Phantom Train and see if there's an Esper there. Ravlin electing to take the Valiant Knife at this check. Valiant Knife, quite an interesting weapon to say the least. It's a weapon that on paper doesn't look great, but in practice it ignores enemy defense and adds a flat total to the attack based on how many hit points you have lost in the battle. It can be quite powerful. And more importantly, unlike most other weapons, the offering doesn't reduce its passive effect. So offering Valiant Knife is one of the primo power combos in this game, to say the least. Vampstar still hacking his way up the Leet River, making a mockery out of these medium enemy crabs. Drulith on the Phantom Train, Skatata inside the burning house, and Ravlin briefly visiting Narsh, thinking about fighting that Katana Soul maybe, but not doing it? Did I miss something? I don't know. No, Ravlin is off to World of Balance Zozo, which we know is going to lead to Locke at the top. Now, on the Phantom Train, the check to pick up whichever item it is in the caboose, and I must reluctantly admit that that's another thing that I missed. Looking at 4 screens at the same time can be a little tricky at times, folks, when there's a lot going on. I am being told by the folks upstairs that it was in fact an Esper. We don't know which one it was, but Drew, once Drew finishes off this Phantom Train dungeon, should be having everything that he needs to enter Kefka's tower and finish up the race. So progression-wise, Drew ahead a little bit here, but depending on which bosses and such show up, there's still a lot of randomizer left to be played, folks. Well, we've got the tentacles at the end of the Phantom Train. Always unusual to see them in a formation that isn't a forced pincer attack. Ravlin continuing to make his way up Zozo Tower. Vampstar continues to battle his way through the Leith River. And Skatata. Inside his menu, Wang jangling his espers once again. Despite being on the back row, still very powerful physical attacks from Terra with that Ragnarok and Ultima weapon in tow. Both of those weapons, by the way, are not back row compatible. Just so you know. Drulith has realms casting all the flare spells in the world there, and if they're hitting for about 8,000 damage, I think you know you've got enough power to get through pretty much anything this game has to offer. Almost at the end of the raft ride now is Vampstar. Skatata continue to plow through the burning house. Ravlin takes off the Moogle Charm, hoping for some decent encounters here in Zozo, but is just running into early game fodder, so probably not really worth the time. Drulith, despite having everything he needs to enter his Kefka's tower, is going to take a couple of quick battles here, it looks like. I assume this is to learn a certain spell or some other at this point, as Drulith's levels look quite comfortable overall, with all of his characters having, at the very least, 2,500 max hit point. Another thing I'm being notified of by the folks upstairs is, despite starting with Strago, we did not see any of our racers elect to have a look at some of his less than favorable, shall we say, checks. While you can go through the Burning House with Strago in tow, you also can go to the top of the Fanatic's Tower, and you can go through Ebbets Rock, but none of our racers have elected to do that. Vampstar on the raft ride is taking the infinite loop, so Vampstar obviously looking to gain some levels here on the raft ride with the, as mentioned, very high experience per level yield of the monsters here. Skatata, just about finished of the Burning House here, is going to have to run into that Funbaba battle very shortly. Ravlin starting to close in on the top of Zozo Tower here. Still has that Moogle Charm off here. This is a pretty interesting random encounter, the Osteosaur. Ravlin perhaps not knowing or not prepared in terms of items, but you can just throw a Revivify or a Phoenix down at that thing and that's an instant kill. Of course, Landslide from the Rage is going to be obscenely powerful and will get it done too, so what do I know? Skatata, at the end of the Burning House, is now fighting Funbaba. And over on Drulith's side, we have the very, very rare and powerful monster Intanginer. How about that? Drew electing to fight this thing through. The Intanginer normally worth 10 magic points, and with the multiplier, that's a flat 50. Going to get a lot of great spells real fast, assuming Drew can defeat this, which is looking quite likely right now. But you can see the big problem with fighting the Intanginer right there. It really likes to drop space rocks on your face. Fortunately, the Meteo spell is evadable via magic evasion, and to start isn't that accurate. It does hit like a truck though. The Meteor spell that your characters can use is not quite as strong, but will always hit. Drew's level's looking very healthy in the early 40s there. You have to think that Drew's going to be wanting to dive into Kefka's Tower and start getting this thing over with very soon. But no, looks like Drew wants to grind a little bit more. There's something that Drew doesn't have that he really wants to get, apparently. Scotita defeats Funbaba, so Scott is now going to recruit everyone's favorite best character, Terra. Yes. Ravlin defeats Rizipis and is very shortly going to recruit Vamp. Looks like Vamp is finally happy with the amount of levels that he's gained on the Elite River, so Vamp is going to finish this thing off. And I believe Vamp is the only one that we've seen go up the Elite River, so this should be a new boss site for all of us here. We've seen most of the nasty ones already, so I don't imagine a situation in which this is going to be too bad. And also, in terms of gaining all those levels on the Elite River, Vampstar did uncurse that cursed shield, so Vampstar now armed with a Paladin shield. Vamp's Terra looking just about unkillable with Ragnarok and Paladin shield in either hand, and she is going to learn Ultimate at some point. So Vampstar, at least as far as the combat goes, should be completely set for the rest of the game. Even though Vampstar does need to find a few more Espers to catch up with our stream's leading runner so far, Drewlith. Ravlin also picking up the Fenrir Esper inside of Narsh on the lock check. So Ravlin at 6 characters and 8 Espers now, closing in on the endgame. Not too far behind Drewlith or Vampstar at this point, I have to say. Scotita, meanwhile, after finally having recruited Terra at the Burning House, is going to be heading over to the Imperial Camp and therefore Esper Cave. Going to go for all the treasures at the bottom first. We know that there is an Aegis Shield, an Earrings, and a Tempest here. Those are the 3 highlight treasures. Everything else is either high-end consumables or outright trash. And on the raft ride for a boss, we have Ultros in an Ultros spot. But it's Airship Ultros, as he has summoned Chupon to come chill with him. Or more accurately, it's just Chupon, because Ultros had the durability of one of those... Actually, I can't say that here. Anyway, Ultros was made out of something like Raditz. Let's leave it at that. And we see Vampstar heading off to the left after the end of the raft ride. So that means that the reward is not a character. Vampstar now at 7 Espers, 7 characters. Drewlith still just beating up some monsters before the end of it all. Ravlin starting to catch up with Drew at 8 Espers, 7 characters, and Scotita a little bit behind everyone else, but cannot be discounted as his old men are quite powerful. So on Drew's side, I'm assuming this is in terms of safety. I mean, it's a very good grind spot for sure. But once your characters eclipse the 3,000 max HP total, you'd think you'd be set there. But Drew electing to battle a lot of these high yield enemies. Vampstar is now heading over to Jador's auction house. We know there's 2 espers there, but here's a splendid chest. Inside is cards! That is not what you want. On Ravlin's side, however, there is an esper. Oh boy, we got the auction wars going on here. Skatata making his way through the Esper Cave after recruited Terra in the Burning House. Drulith officially inside of Kefka's tower now. Drulith still checking a few treasure chests here, and I kind of agree, the equipment is not super outstanding, but there's a lot of good stuff there. So Drulith, clearly the first of our racers into Kefka's tower. Skatata, inside of the Esper Cave, is going to head into the treasure room and find that glorious, glorious Ragnarok sword. Vamp still trying to purchase espers from the auction house. We did see some of our runners get extremely lucky on getting 2 very quick espers from that auction house, so it's not impossible. Drulith taking party number 2 through Kefka's tower, not too far away from the button at this point. Just has to remember to clear the path for party number 1, and Drulith does. Very, very important there. Otherwise, you'll be having to backtrack just a little bit. Vampstar gonna have another attempt at the auction house here. See if the yield is any better. It's an esper for Vampstar. It's very good. Party 2 already at the end for Drulith. He has some of his characters in the 50s. You have to think he's got enough levels to get through this thing there. So there is the Magicite Ragnarok for Vampstar, closing in on the requirements. Drew a little bit ahead going into Kefka's tower. Ravlin has everything that he needs to get in there, so it's a slight advantage for Drew, but it could still be anyone's game. Skatata, meanwhile, not to be outdone, heading to World of Ruin Zozo, looks like, and going to do the chainsaw puzzle and see what's in the chest up there. First boss inside Kefka's tower is Funbaba. And we've seen the non-Baba Breath Funbaba so far. So, have to wonder if Drulith is going to lose one of his better characters here. And yes, there's the Baba Breath. There goes Gao. Terra will stay around because you can't have 0 people in your party, but it'll be interesting to see what Drew decides to do from here. hasn't gotten too far into the tower, but did. And yeah, Drew is going to take that Warp Stone out. Drew definitely wanting Gao for the final battle. So a little bit of time lost there, but you have to think that pretty much every runner is going to run into that. Funbaba trolls everyone equally. Scott Tata, making his way up Zozo Tower, is going to encounter a pretty easy boss and then recruit Locke at the top. Vampstar now also officially entering Kefka's Tower, and Ravlin will be right there soon with them, you have to think. So, Skatata a little bit behind the pace here, but our other three racers all able to enter Kefka's Tower and willing to get things done here. So we could be in for a very exciting finish here once Ravlin decides to actually go there. The good news for Drew, however, is with Fun Baba out of the way, you don't have to worry about losing any characters permanently, semi-permanently I should say, because you can just go to the airship to get them back. So from here on it should be smooth sailing for Drew as Drew tries to get to the end of this one here. Ravlin, finding one of the vanilla inescapable Kefka Tower encounters, not inside Kefka's Tower, because why not, apparently. Those great behemoths, you can never escape from them. And they can be quite nasty in some situations, but at this point, with most of our lead racers' characters well over 2,500 hit points, they don't have too much to worry about. Drulith now getting his progression back to where he was, but Fun Baba is gone, so no worries about, permanently losing one of your party members going forward here. And in the case of Drulith, when you have Gao with good rages and Terra in the same team, you probably want both of those characters for the final battle, is what I'm guessing here, since they're both incredibly powerful and well defended, it looks like. Both buttons leading up to the second half of Kefka's Tower for Drew. Just has to take his first party up there and walk through the door to keep going. Vampstar getting their first steps into Kefka's Tower, not too far behind, but has not fought that Funbaba boss yet. That could throw a lot of monkey wrenches into their plan. Ravlin still learning a few spells outside of Kefka's Tower, and Skatata, now at the top of Zozo, is recruiting Locke. Old Man Strago pushing that weight down for Drulith, so it's going to be the penultimate 4 bosses for Drulith momentarily. Just has to move his parties into the right places and push the right buttons and weights and, all of that stuff. Looks like Realm really wanted to push a 4-ton weight onto Gao's head, but the game sadly will not allow for that. Well, we've got first of 4 mandatory penultimate bosses for Drulith here. It's going to be Chardanook. This isn't a fight that you think Drulith is going to lose, but it could take quite a bit of time and allow some of the other racers to catch up a little bit here. Meanwhile, Ravlin still taking some final preparations here before going into Kefka's Tower. Vampstar inside of Kefka's Tower right now, not too far behind Drulith, truth be told. Skatata a little bit behind the rest of our racers here, but still making a valiant effort. Meanwhile, Skatata picking up that cursed shield, 21 battles. Be interesting to see if Scott decides if it's worthwhile or not to uncurse the thing. Vampstar elects to go for two very out-of-the-way treasure chests inside Kefka's tower, perhaps not super confident with the amount of equipment and weapons that they've found so far. Still fighting Chardar Nook is Drulith, but Terra making mincemeat out of it with those Genji Glove physicals with the Ragnarok and Atma weapon. A couple of hits for 5,000 is quite a lot of damage. Didn't even need a flare proc to send that chump back to the scrap heap. So 3 more mandatory bosses for Drew on the way to Kefka, and more importantly has unlocked a save point. So you don't have to walk all your parties through everything else to get to a boss here. It's just number 24 here for Drew. You have to think this is going to be a one-hit kill at this point, and it is. So Drew's most powerful party of Terra and Gao has advanced to the end. Just 2 more bosses for Drew to defeat before he's able to challenge Kefka and perhaps win this race over absolutely everyone else. Inside Kefka's tower, Vampstar has encountered Fun Baba. So one of Strago or Gao is going to be sent back to the airship after a victory here, and we'll have to see if Vamp decides to exit out and take them back in with him. Ravlin still doing some last-minute leveling up / spell learning here before Kefka's tower. Skatata in World of Ruin Narshe has elected to challenge the dragon, which is Gold Dragon. Not the greatest dragon to fight as of right now. The enemy drops are not randomized, so all you get from defeating this one is just a muscle belt. It's not a bad accessory, but it's not a great one either. So unless you're really trying to learn some spell or other, this is probably not the best use of your time in a race fighting this gold dragon. Over on Drew's side, the next boss that we have on one of the alternate paths is number 24, aka the much weaker cousin of Inferno, so this is not going to be any issue whatsoever for Drew. And there it goes, 1 flare spell, 1 kill looks like. And up on Vamp's side, after running into Fun Baba, decided, no, I'm going to start this over, I don't want to lose my good characters here. Yes. It's never something that you like to see in these, but it happens more often than you'd like to admit. Let's just be happy for our runners that it happened before the actual final boss locations. In the Inferno spot, it's not that bad, but, you know, say you went through the entire tower and then in, say, the Poltergeist spot, you ran into Fun Baba and lost one of your best characters, yeah, that wouldn't be pleasant. That didn't happen here, though. Radlin still being inside Kefka's tower, looking for that slight power boost, I guess, to get them over the edge. Skatata finds Sir Behemoth in World of Ruin Narshe at the Tritox spot. Meanwhile, Drulith only has 1 boss remaining inside of Kefka's tower, and it is Vargas and these 2 Eye-Poos. Vampstar not too far behind, but does have to beat 3 bosses to catch up to Drulith here. So Drulith out in front here, but a lot can still happen here, folks. And Vargas goes down, so you have to think, after maybe a couple of moments to Wang jangle some equipment and heal up, Drulith is going to be challenging Final Kefka here. Skatata still fighting Sir Behemoth at the top of World of Ruin Narshe, making quick work of him with a Genji Glove offering Cyan with some pretty high offense weapons there. Unfortunately for all our runners, Drulith is going to be the first to challenge Kefka here. If Drulith can pull this off, they will be the winner. But what gets interesting here is if something happens and Drulith is unable to win this fight, Vampstar is not too far behind. Only 4 easy endgame bosses remaining before being able to challenge Kefka. And let's not count out Ravlin. Has everything that Ravlin needs to get into Kefka's tower and get it done, just has to do it. Ravlin is in fact inside of Kefka's tower right now. So lots still to be decided here. But you have to think, with Drulith's levels and preparation, it'd be quite a surprise if Drulith lost here, but we'll just have to wait and see. Drulith electing to use the Haste 2 spell at the start of battle. Haste, not as good in this Final Fantasy game as most others, actually. Probably something that you could, on average, do without. Drulith also using powerful flare spells, but that animation time is quite slow, does perhaps open an opportunity for other players to catch up. Drew, however, clearly showing good knowledge of the final boss. You want to get rid of that head part first, otherwise you're going to eat a very, very nasty Quake counterattack if it's the last one killed. Vampstar working on pressing all the buttons to get to the last 4, as we've seen pretty easy boss fights to get to Kefka here. Ravlin finally inside Kefka's tower, still doing the first half of it, hitting the buttons, clearing the path, getting everything through, and perhaps more importantly, hasn't fought Fun Baba yet. If Ravlin fights Fun Baba and loses a good character, they may want to re-enter the tower. But little they know, in this situation, it's better for you to just continue because you're behind 2 other humans at this point. We've got the Inferno fight over for Skatata in World of Balance Narsh now. Drulith making really good use of Terra's physical attacks right now. Perhaps does not have a death spell or anything accessible. Drulith did not go through Cyan's Dream, so there's no cleave to take care of 2 of the final boss parts instantly after all. Charter Nook up on Vampstar's side here. Level 5 Locke looking like he's really contributing to the cause here. But he does have Super Balls, so maybe. Drulith still plugging away at the first form of Final Kefka here. Definitely doing a good job. But as you can see how long those flare spells take. It shouldn't be too much of an issue here for him with the 4 racers that we're seeing right now. But the extra long emanations from those can perhaps lose you some seconds over someone who's got quicker attacks. Just even in the case of Drulith there, Terra with those Genji Glove physicals is doing well over 10,000 damage without a proc in far less time than a single flare spell casting. Wow, that was a lot of damage. Drulith's Terra just got hit for well over 3,000 damage. I don't think I've seen a physical hit deal that much damage outside of the Doom statue or Kefka's Havoc Wing. So that was something, to say the least. But Drew is in fact on to the second form of the final boss, so trying to plug things along here. Vamp, meanwhile, getting into a dire situation with Charter Nook here, just down to Cyan. Cyan looking a little beat up here. Ravlin finally re-entering Kefka's tower after the fun from Fun Baba. So, not too far behind Vampstar, who was also not too far behind Drulith. It's fairly close between our top 3. Meanwhile, Skatata Perhaps his greatest downfall was electing to spend so much time beating up all those Empire goons in the Kefka at Narsh fight, because he was doing that for clearly close to a half hour or so. And then the boss just ended up being those not too difficult cranes. Southern Cross is going to hit Drulith's party here. Pretty nasty attack there. Drulith's going to have to rebuild things a little bit here on that second form against Kefka. Doesn't have death in the arsenal, so all of those powerful Magitech attacks are still going to come out of the machine part here. Vampstar, meanwhile, is moving on to the next boss, leading into Final Kefka. It's number 24. We know that that's a not very difficult fight. Does not, however, have that ridiculous high level and powerful Genji glove setup that Drulith had, so this will be a... And it's gone. What? And it's gone. Skatata, meanwhile, on the Leith River, as Ravlin gets back to that first save point in Kefka's tower. So Ravlin's got a bit of catching up to do here. It's not insurmountable. Drew seeming to have a few difficulties on this second form of the final boss right now. There's a Northern Cross, and it looks like it freezes two of his most potent spellcasters, with Gao being busy raging. No, not raging. Does Gao have fire spells? He does not. So it'll come down. If Strago has fire spells, he can free his two characters. Otherwise, this might be the opportunity that Vampstar needs to catch up here. Vampstar is still quite a bit behind Drulith, but Drulith Phase 2 taking quite a bit of time here against Final Kefka. And let's not count out Ravlin. Ravlin, now entering the open door, just has to fight the final four bosses to get up there. Number 128 is down for Vampstar, so Vampstar just has, I believe, one boss left before being able to challenge the end of the game here. There's a break for Drulith, the boss casting a multi-target Fire 3. Normally you wouldn't say that's a break, but it unfroze his characters. So now able to continue those big damaging physicals with Terra. Might want to heal her just a bit so that that ultimate weapon isn't terrible, but that Ragnarok with its NP crit hitting for well over 7,000 damage already. There's Vargas and those eye poos for Vampstar. Nobody poops but you, by the way. We have Chardar Nook over for Ravlin Bay. It's pretty close right now between Vampstar and Ravlin. Drulith still out in front, fighting the second form of Kefka's final battle. It's Drulith's race to lose between our four highlighted runners at this point, for sure. But a lot can still happen. The final boss is not scaled as you are used to seeing in a lot of these races right now. So the final boss will be doing as its maximum damage output. Those space rocks are still looming from tier 3, and that could be a problem for all of our runners coming forth. Vampstar defeats Vargas and the Ipoos. Big hit against Chardar Nook from Ravlin Bay. And then a meager 50 damage physical from Mog finishes it off. You can't write this stuff, folks. How about that? Skatata still on the Leith River. still plugging away at the second phase of the final boss is Drulith here. That Magitech part still alive and pelting him with pretty nasty Magitech attacks. Really good physical there. I saw the delay. That should have done it for the Magitech part there at the very least. Still has some more work to do there. Getting surrounded by toe cutters was Vampstar, but is able to battle their way out of that random encounter. Meanwhile, Skatata back on the Leith River has dispatched Ultros and now just has to do a bit of damage to Chupon until he decides that pepper is not good for his nostrils. And there it is. So Skatata is going to finish up the Leith River. And form number 2 of the final boss is down for Drulith. Going on to form 3. Drulith very well prepared with the above average levels here. Those meteor spells will cap out around 1600 damage, so we'll be able to survive probably 2 of them. But you never know what happens here. Let's hope for some good fortune for Drulith so that we can see a decisive winner here. Boss opening with the Whirlwind spell. Misses most of his characters, but Strago now down into that near death range. Number 128 fight for Ravlin right now. Throwing super balls with Terra, and that is the killing blow. Vampstar looking to try to gain a couple of quick levels on some of his ancillary characters here at the very end after having defeated all of the bosses required to fight Kefka. Maybe just not quite powerful or confident, my excuse, with the amount of power that he has to his use so far. Skatata now going through the Serpent Trench. We know that that is going to yield an Esper. That will put Scott at 6 characters, 9 Espers. Only need 1 more of each to enter the final dungeon, even though he's a good distance behind. Ravlin's side just needs to defeat 1 more boss with Strago and co. to enter the final battle. Drulith still ahead of the rest of our racers here, getting a nice physical and a flare proc on Sleep, followed by that big hit with the ultimate weapon from Terra, doing tons of damage each turn, showing the physical might here. Big heal, big Merton coming though. That is going to do some significant damage to all targets here. It shouldn't matter too much. All of his characters are still well over 2,000 hit points here. Just has to finish this thing off. Vargas fight over on Ravlin's side here. We know Vargas is not a difficult boss, but the way that the scaling works, he's probably got a ton of HP. So Ravlin has to get this thing done quick and get into that final boss battle. Second place still on the table for everyone. Honestly, first place still on the table for everyone. Drulith making use of that Fenrir spell. So if those calmness counters come out, any of his characters with those images aren't going to get instantly killed, allowing him to keep using his best players for his final battle against Kefka. Realm using that double cast flare, but now a train up in Drulith's face. So Drew going to have to toss some Echo Screens around to unlock his magic power. Echo Screens or remedies, those train abilities from the final 2 forms of the final boss, always a thorn in our players' sides here, but it's not over yet. More space rocks come down, but Drew very healthy. Calmness misses twice, so Drew has his absolute most powerful party going into Final Kefka. Honestly, at this point, it would be some sort of craziness if Drew could not finish this thing out, I have to say. But Not to be outdone, not too far behind him is Ravlin, now officially starting his final boss encounter. And Vampstar, we know, has everything that they need to do to get in there. Vampstar maybe just wanting a few more levels to feel confident about getting through the final boss battle right now. It's final Kefka for Drulith right now. See how he decides to approach the fight here. It's a little bit different whenever the final boss isn't scaled. You can get some free hits on Kefka early on in the fight before worrying about those completely awful hyperdrive and Ultima counters. Looks like Drew is going to elect to finally use the morph skill on Terra. That is going to make those physical attacks hit for obscene amounts of damage. Very low on hit points right now. I believe Drulith was one of the players that found that Mega Elixir very early on. Did they maybe forget that they had it and they're busy using X potions? Something to ask for later, perhaps. Ravlin fighting the first form of final Kefka right now. Also looking very powerful in terms of hit points, gear, and let's be honest, outright damage. And not too far behind Ravlin is Vampstar, finally deciding, alright, it's time, let's get this final boss battle going. Yo! Very nasty Fire 3 spell on the party on Drulith's side there. That's going to hamper his offense just a little bit here, depending on what he decides to do. Finally gets that remedy up on Terra's transformed state. So, no, electing to play it defensively, not wanting to swing whenever one of his characters is down. So a potential 20,000 plus damage ignored on Drulith's side against final Kefka. Ravlin fighting against the first form right now, wisely targeting the head first. There's not going to be a Quake counter-attack to this. Over on Scott Tata's side, has made his way to the end of World of Balance Figaro Cave. There's the Goddess. This is going to give him Sabin. That will put him at 9 Espers and 7 characters once he wins this. Vampstar also starting his final boss battle. Really nice roll from those fixed dice early on. Everyone targeting that head. They really don't want those Quake spells ruining their faces early on. Vampstar casting Ultima after having uncursed that cursed shield. You have to think that there's no way that Vampstar is going to lose this final battle, so it's all going to come down to, can Drulith get this done, and can Ravlin finish it faster than Vampstar? So far, looking pretty good for Drulith, doing lots of damage to final Kefka right now. Big swing there, 15,000 damage from a physical attack, and no nasty counters. Kefka now into his charging for Goner phase. This is the safest time to attack Kefka, because he will not counterattack you here. So we've got a couple of flare castings on Drulith's side coming from both Strago and Realm, and has queued up a physical attack from Terra if absolutely needed. And I think that's it. Yes, there it is. It's done. Drulith is your winner. Drulith is going to take this week's race with a very robust and a respectable time of 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 24 seconds. Congratulations, Drew. You are the winner. Well played all around. This race is not over yet, folks. There's still a lot to be decided in terms of the remaining finishers' order. We've got Ravlin moving on to Phase 2 of Kefka. Vampstar, not too far behind, has done good damage to the first form of Kefka. So it's between these two. Yes, Vampstar now moving on to Phase 2. About 20 seconds of separations between these two players right now. And for everyone watching us, we are now officially joined by the winner of this week's race, Drewlith. Drew, congratulations. You're the winner this week. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. I mean, I could have played a lot better, that's for sure, but I think overall my decisions weren't too bad. And I mean, the seed was hard. So, at least it was for me.
Absolutely, Drew. There's no way around that. Basically, on the restream, from what we've seen between all four racers, early on, you were forced to either fight your way through a very difficult Funbaba or a very difficult Doulahan to unlock the characters that you need in order to open the seed up a little bit there. You were the first to defeat one of those two roadblock bosses. In your own words, what exactly was it that allowed you to overcome one of those two roadblocks early on?
Well, I believe I found some Super Balls to help me with Funbaba. So really just a lot of early game shopping and powering up. I swear I was shopping for like 20 minutes at the start of the seed, but like I just couldn't find anything. I never found rods. And then also a little bit of luck actually, because his level was divisible by 4, which means that the level 4 flare was able to land, which really helped a lot in terms of DPS. So
that was the next thing that I wanted to bring up, was your very good use of level 4 flare. I don't know if you outright planned it against a lot of the bosses that you fought, but you definitely made good use of level 4 flares damage in quite a few places, so that was really awesome to see Strago's level requirement lores being used in such an efficient factor. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is I think you were the first of our 4 runners to find an Aegis shield in a chest, and that certainly would have helped you get past, at the very least, Funbaba, since it's nasty thunder spells. But another thing that worked into your advantage is that you were the one of our 4 racers that realized that you could use Carbuncle to protect the rest of your party as well from all those nasty thunder spells early on. And then again in a couple other boss fights as well, like whenever you fought the goddess inside of World of Balance South Figaro Cave. So
yeah.
Very good knowledge of the game on display here for sure.
Yeah, definitely Carbuncle was nice. That goddess, I really wasn't sure if I could beat her, but once again, the level 4 flare landed. I just casted it just to see, you know? It was just like a 1 in 4 chance. And, I mean, if it hits, it's powerful, so...
Absolutely, and in some cases, fortune certainly does favor the bold. One other thing, it seemed like you gained much more levels than the rest of our racers did, but that certainly played to your advantage, as you were able to make some very devastating physical attacks with your Terra character, not just in the final battle, but elsewhere as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, I found those EXP eggs in South Figaro. I just sold everything I had to buy 4 of them. I knew they were going to be really, really nice to have. If you can't get up to those high levels, physical attacks, they can be useful, but you need the right equipment. But if you get to a really high level, just about any physical attack will do a lot of damage. And with Ragnarok, you know, that's double damage, and Atma weapon doesn't get reduced by defense. So, you know, those are just some strong physical weapons. And the animations for physical attacks are just really short, so I try to favor them. If I can get into a state where I can just physical attack all day long and do really good damage, I'll do it. Just because I think it'll save a lot of time in the long run. Now, unfortunately, I had to cast a lot of flare.
I completely agree with you there. It's not... You do need to level your characters past that 40 threshold for physicals to be really powerful. But once you get to that point, they, like you said, they do have the shortest animations, and they often are going to be more powerful than a lot of your spells. In this case, you had a Ragnarok and an ultimate Atma weapon which is something we were talking about early on, since every player had access to that because you could basically buy it. But the idea was that you usually need to be a level in the like early 50s or so for Atma Weapon to actually mean anything. But you did level your party up to that point there, so your damage was very impressive in terms of the final battle and some of the boss fights leading up to that as well.
Yeah. So, and I even went out of my way to grind before entering Kefka's tower because I did the Owzer's mansion grind and got to 40s. And normally I'd be like, that's usually high enough to beat Kefka, but I really didn't have that good a defensive gear or really all the magic that I really wanted. So that makes things a lot safer, like Life 3 or Ultima. So
I completely understand. Outside of the Minerva that all of our racers got from going through the Kefka and Narsh battle and a couple of Aegis shields and chests, unless you spent a ton of money on snow mufflers and the like, the defensive gear wasn't too great on this seed overall. And I don't know if you're watching the restream right now or not, Drulith, but we've got Ravlin about halfway through Tier 3 and Vampstar just approaching Tier 3, so we've got a pretty interesting battle going on for second place right now.
Yeah, I tuned in right when I finished, and I've been sort of watching during this interview, and glad to see the other runners at the tower as well. I was actually worried. I thought that other people would have gotten through the seed faster just by just having an easier path, but it looks like everybody had to go through some pretty rough boss fights. So
absolutely. You were the first to recruit Terra going through the Burning House. Vampstar went through the Burning House probably about 20 minutes before you, but wasn't able to defeat Funbaba at the end, and Vampstar is just finishing up Tier 3 right now. So if Vampstar was able to finish that Funbaba fight out the first time and recruit Terra, it might have been a completely different race here between everyone, because Terra led to, on top of her being unarguably the best character, having 5 checks, she also led to that Ragnarok inside of the Esper Cave there. So I'm not trying to belittle you by any way. You're our winner. You did it absolutely the best. But do you think that this race could have maybe been a little bit different if Vamp was able to pull a 1 in a million win over Funbaba that early on in the race?
Yeah, I think so, because I think Vamp probably would have won at that point, just because once you had Terra, I mean, that led to Sabin, who has 1 million checks. I didn't even check all his checks. And
yeah, Terra led to Sabin and Locke.
Yeah, and Locke.
And just great loot all around. Terra was really the key to this seed, as we've seen between all of our runners here. Some people were able to, with a lot of difficulty, defeat that nasty Dullahan boss early and recruit Realm early, but Realm didn't lead to anything quite nearly as outrageous as Terra did, so it was either, you defeat this nasty boss or you defeat that nasty boss.
Yeah, I definitely
would open this seed up.
I definitely lost a lot of time attempting that Dullahan. And then also, I don't know if you noticed, but I lost a lot of time. I forgot to save before entering the Welk check. And so I had to redo Esper Mountain. I had to do that twice because my last save was before there. So
I do remember seeing that, but I did not actually bring it to everyone's attention because I'm watching 4 people there. But yeah, that was a little rough. I was a little bit... I was somewhat concerned for you at that point, but you were very comfortably ahead on progression compared to your peers throughout the vast majority of the seed here. We now have both Ravlin and Vampstar fighting Final Kefka. It's a crazy duel for who's going to be second place here.
Oh, yeah, this is to the wire here.
this is going to be great. We're seeing Ravlin making good use of going through Cyan's Dream to power Cyan up considerably. That's a big hit, and that's going to do it. So it looks like Ravlin is going to be our second place finisher here tonight. So congratulations, Ravlin. Well,
GG Raveling.
Well, Drew, while I still have you here, is there anything else you'd like to add about the race before we send you to the wayside and chat with Ravlin for a bit here?
Just that I really enjoy the randomizer a lot, and that I appreciate all the work that Atmotech does, and also the restreaming teams. And hope we have another great race next week.
Amen to that, sir. Thank you very much for your kind words for everyone involved in this. Here on Randomania, we can tell everyone to follow the runners and, the commentators and the trackers, but you said it better than anyone else. The one you really want to follow is Atmotech, the creator of this randomizer. He's the one who makes everything possible. It's so fantastic. Drulith, thank you very much for joining us in the broadcast booth. Congratulations on your win, and looking forward to seeing what you can do next week.
Thank you. You have a good one. This is getting awkward. I don't know what to say. Anyway, I'm heading off.
All right, and that was Drulith, ladies and gentlemen. Get your GGs out once again for him. He was the winner tonight. It looks like we are now joined by our second place finisher, Ravlin, as Vampstar has just finished off Final Kefka to be our third place finisher. Ravlin, are you here with us right now?
I am.
Ravlin, congratulations on second place out of 7 very talented racers here. Everything looked like it was going quite well for you. One thing that we saw that put you a little bit behind Drew and eventually Vampstar, which made the fight for second place much more interesting. Before you went into Kefka's Tower, you elected to grind quite a bit. What exactly was going through your mind at that point?
So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a good spell on Realm, namely Flare and Life 3, I think, were the 2 spells that I wanted to make sure that I had on Realm. I was thinking that I was over grinding at the time. I was also thinking maybe I'll get enough to uncurse the shield, but that didn't happen, and eventually I just bailed and went to the tower when I realized I was way over leveled.
Understandable. Now, even though Vamp finished a little over a minute behind you, Vampstar was actually the one runner out of the 4 that we watched that was able to successfully uncurse the shield. And you were quite ahead of Vamp going into the final battle at the start, but Vamp was able to make up quite a bit of ground on you on the way. Not enough to pass you for second place, mind you, but you can really see the power of the Paladin shield in that situation. What it comes down to, I think, is could you see a hypothetical situation where someone goes to that burning house, recruits Terra early, and decides to, I'll just go to Zozo, and then you get Locke, and then you get that curse shield at maybe like less than an hour? Like, how fast could this race possibly have been with that particular set of admittedly non-occurring but possible situations?
I think it was certainly a possible line. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't was because you try to save the burning house to get some grinding XP, You don't want to use it super early. Like, I avoided it because I just didn't want to waste a good grind spot until I was comfortable with the team that I had and wanted to level them up.
That's a very good argument for everything there. One other thing I want to ask you, you relied a lot more on some slow magical attacks for a lot of your damage in the final fight. Drulith had a Ragnarok and an Ultima weapon, Genji gloved on Terra, to be basically swinging for 15,000 plus a proc every turn there. As powerful as that flare spell is, are you considering maybe trying to find high damaging abilities that don't take quite so long to go off in the future?
So that's one of the reasons why I actually used Gao and the Prussian and Retainer rages. Those were doing...
Gao, I don't mean to cut you off right here, but yes, Gao was quite powerful in this seed for sure. Retainer, as I've told everyone, is General Leo's shock command, and Prussian is, Landslide, which is effectively Flare 2. So, yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I am not as... I want to say I'm not as familiar with using physical-based strats. I'm not even sure if I honestly even found a Genji glove, to be honest. So I'm not sure that I would have, at this point, done a physical strat. I was more comfortable with the magic strats going in, so that's what I was going to do. I do want to ask, did anyone notice during the Chardanuk fight at Guardian Spot that I had Realm and Gao dishing out tons of damage, and then Mog goes in with his Mithril Spear and gets the last hit on that?
Yes, we did notice that. We saw the 5,000 damage from Realm, and then Mog doing just a random attack for, I think it was 56 damage, and that was the killing blow. We thought it was pretty great.
I lost my mind. I thought that was fantastic.
It absolutely was, Rav. I hate to cut this short, but I know that we've got Vamp on deck to talk to as well there. So do you have any final thoughts about this seed here?
No, it was just a struggle in the beginning. Once I got rolling, things were fine. But, that first 15, 20 minutes was a beast.
Yeah, no kidding. Your choices were either defeat Dullahan or defeat an actual Funbaba boss fight early on. That was something that we saw every player run into. And everyone played really well, but the big difference is some of our players were able to find an Aegis shield in South Figaro early on, and that enabled you to just go, oh, well, I don't care about your bolt attacks, Funbaba, so I can beat you now. And, as we saw, Funbaba in the Burning House unlocked Terra, which typically unlocks everything, and also she's probably the strongest character, so,
Absolutely. Well, GG's, and I'm going to join us in the chat for the rest of the race.
Hey, Ravlin, thank you very much for gathering with us a bit post-race. It was great to actually have you do one of these races for a change, since you're usually the man behind the scenes there. And I gotta say, you put up a pretty good showing, finishing second in this one. So, you can hold your head very high with that. And, depending on the way things go, probably not next week because I'm going to want to play, but maybe a week or two after that, you'll get another reprieve and you can try to show Drulith what for.
Hear, hear.
All right, everyone, that was Ravlin, our second place finisher. So thank you very much, Ravlin. That was a great time. I believe we are now joined by our third place finisher, Vampstar. Vamp, are you with us?
I am. Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. Just hanging out, playing Nintendo and all that. How are you doing, sir?
That was a rough start, but it was a really fun seed.
I'm glad to hear it, Vamp.
I definitely hit some walls there.
There were a couple of locations where it seemed that you died a little bit more than you would have liked. Vamp, you were unfortunately the first person to go into that burning house, gain a whole bunch of levels, and then find out that it was a Funbaba and then die. That definitely hurt your final time quite a bit. But other than that, everything that you did seemed to work out pretty well for you. And I mean, you're our third place finisher tonight, unfortunately, but maybe if not for going there and being adventurous, who knows what could have happened, right?
Oh, absolutely. My thought really was, some quick, easy fights, gain some levels. Hopefully, with my low gear, I can kind of squeeze past that first boss. But unfortunately, when you have lower gear and no elemental resistance, it really doesn't matter.
That elemental resistance is the big one there as far as an early Funbaba goes. Those lightning spells just kind of destroyed you, and then you had to look for another avenue to search in terms of progression from there. But apart from that solid 15-minute time sink into all those levels and then getting killed, everything really did seem to go pretty good for you, honestly. So I know you're one of the least, I guess, experienced runners in terms of this right now, in terms of regular races. But you put on a very good show, honestly.
Yeah,
So,
I tend to go for like harder seeds and just longer progression, just to kind of see what the enemies are going to do to me later on. Yeah, as far as racing goes, it's kind of hard for me not to go do other things, and I've been adapting to that.
I can understand that as someone who did grow up with a completionist mentality, but if you get enough speed runs under your belt, you can kind of break the habit, I suppose. We did see a couple of situations where it was like, why is Vamp going for that? You probably don't need whatever it is, but that's okay.
Right.
We're all still kind of building up the repetitions for this randomizer in the early days here. But you did really well, right? For someone who's known for just being a 100% racer, you lost second place to Ravlin by just a little bit over than a minute, which
Yep.
in a 2.5 hour race is not too bad at all, I have to say. So I'm thinking there's a lot of potential for you in the future if you can, break a few more habits there. And
Totally.
I'm very much looking forward to see what you can do. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about this particular seed with?
Not really. It's just finding, figuring out when you're actually going to grind and when you're going to go for bosses is like really key to the racing route, I guess. But I think I kind of turned it around and adapted pretty well after facing a few walls. I wasn't going back for that goddess. There's no point for me.
I completely understand, yeah. A few things didn't go too great for you, but ultimately you made a lot of great decisions. One thing that I want to point out specifically to you, because based on what we'd seen from the race, the opportunity was there. But so Drulith made really, really good use of Strago's level 4 flare spell that he started out with.
Okay.
Because the way that a lot of the enemy level ups and such work means that that's something that can happen. Like, this is not a criticism, this is a, hey, if you ever run into this situation in the future, this might be something to try. Because there were a couple of like, oh wow, I can't run into this guy so early, this isn't going to work kind of boss fights where it's like, maybe if you were willing to take a turn to try that, let alone even knowing all the crazy level up paradigms that Drulith definitely knowed, it's like, maybe one of these spells works there. Because Drulith made mincemeat out of 3 different bosses with that level 4 flare spell, and in at least one of the cases, it was based on the same amount of progression that you had when you were stuck at Funbaba in, say, the Burning House, right?
Right.
Yeah, and this isn't a criticism or anything. This is just saying, if you run into something that looks horrible, maybe try something weird. Maybe it works, right? Because
Absolutely.
other than that really long grind in the Burning House, which was ended in a really disappointing loss to Funbaba, like everything you did just turned to gold, and you were just so good the whole way through. So, you didn't win tonight, but take that for the future. You're a very good player, and I'm looking forward to see what you can do.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Ravlin, and I just want to take another moment to thank you for usually being the person that organizes all these races and talks about them and does all the other behind-the-scenes work. So, it was great to actually have you actively racing in one of these for a change. So, thank you very much for...
Yeah, I think Ravlin's out of the channel.
Yeah, I know. I just realized I got it mixed up. That's my bad. I blame Mr. Entity, who isn't on the restream, but it's totally his fault.
It's okay. Had a lot of fun, and
Sorry, Vampy. I can still find lots of other cool things to say about you, because, men. How about that there Return of the Dark Sorcerer, right?
oh, it's one of my favorite ROM hacks. Definitely a good one to check out.
And did you know that I did, a bunch of the music for that?
I do.
You do, but maybe no one else does, but now they do. Scott the Fighting Twin Baba has gotten Gao Baba Breath out.
Yeah, I had to deal with that. Luckily, I dealt with that first thing when I got to Kefka's Tower, and I warped out and grabbed my Gao back. That was the only thing that kind of was like, okay.
Scott's just gonna keep going. See, I like this. You can always run into that Funbaba that can just go, I don't like this character, they're gone, back to the airship, deal with it. But in some cases, maybe you're like, that's okay, I can deal with.
Yeah, I believe you worked on more than 4 characters, though.
Looking at Gao, and despite the fact that Gao has some very good rages, I don't see why there's any way that he could make do without, unless Gao was just going, oh, I've got your Ragnarok and Paladin shield, etc., that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I definitely needed everyone at the end with me.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Vamp.
What's up?
Hey, Vamp.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I am going to do something very interesting right now.
What's that?
You're going to commentate the action for the next minute because I have to take a bio break. Think you can handle it?
I got you, man.
Whoop! I'll be right back.
Alright, so Scott's gonna come up to the last few fights here. See how he fares against these bosses. Should be able to just knock him right out. I believe there was a Fargus, there was a yeah, I also found the experience eggs. I just didn't return to grab one. Both numbers, 24 and 128. Yep. At least these bosses are free bosses. Well, except for Locke. Locke is going down. So Scott clears 128. I believe he has 24 and Vargas left.
He defeated the pieces of rocks. By the way, thank you very much for covering me, Vampy Buddy.
Oh,
I hate doing this in the middle of a commentary, but when you gotta go, and I knew you could handle it. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Now we got Vargas and the I Poo, which is not the thing that I just did, despite what other people may want to say.
yeah, he's gonna make quick work of Vargas. Should only be a few hits.
Well, the max hit points is going to be relatively high. Just have to get her done and over with.
Did he end up getting Ultima?
I believe Vampstar was the only one that uncursed the Curse Shield, and we did not see any Espers that taught Ultima otherwise. Ergo, no.
Okay.
But still making pretty quick work of Vargas with those flare spells is Scottata.
Yeah, I was just lucky that those toe cutters were giving me 15 magic points. Trying to get Ultima from the Paladin field.
Well, as far as the toe cutters go, they will always give you quote-unquote 3 magic points a battle, so the multiplier makes it 15, etc., etc. In a lot of cases, even though our standard racing settings do start you with all the Moogle charms in the world, if you're willing to be a little bit adventurous and try to find a good place to fight enemies, you never know how quickly you can learn spells or level up. It's a very interesting win, don't win kind of thingamajigger, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially if you find something like Specs, you can get some good MP, or if you just go for a dragon real quick.
Going for the dragon to learn spells is, at the moment, usually not a bad idea, because the dragon's drops are still whatever they would normally drop in vanilla. So some dragons can drop extremely high-end defensive gear, or you could be like, oh, I have a Magus Rod, or a quote-unquote scimitar. Really weird that they decided to name it that, but that's effectively Odin's sword, which is, yeah, you swing it, and if you're lucky, it's dead, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So now, on Scottata's side, we have Strago Solo versus Chatter Nook. I'd say this would be quite interesting, but the boss is mostly based on lightning spells, so I'm pretty sure Scott will be fine in this one. Strago pounding in that flare spell against Chatter Nook. Not enough to finish him off, but still looking pretty good for Scottata so far. Unfortunately, the boss switching forms here. So Scott gonna lay in a couple of flares against the non-damageable side of the boss here. Ergo, these are wasted attacks, unfortunately. But no one likes Chatter Nook. It just wastes your time.
huge problem for Scott now has gotten charmed as Strago. His only character is now no longer under his control and actively trying to kill the own party. This is a wipe. Scott, if he knows what's going on, should reload his save and try again. He can no longer win the fight anymore, unfortunately. Mercifully, the form switch kind of messes up with that. So he's got an opportunity to rally. A couple of flare spells are going to hit quite hard. A couple of 5,000 damage hits. Shadar Nook is still alive for Scott Tata, though. He's got a little bit more work to do. He's going to double cast flare again. But the boss is switching form. That's not what you want to see, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, robots and cyborgs of all everything. Of course, the fight is certainly not over yet. But it is taking a little bit more time than any of us would want to. Strago blocks that charm spell so we can at least decide what he wants to do for the next couple of turns. Scott Tata going into the items menu, presumably looking for an elixir or X-Ether or something of the sort. No, just going for an X potion right now, but Strago only with 5 MIPS out of his vast total. Going to need a little bit more MIPS than that if you're going to do some big damage. Real boss is back out again. Looks like Scott Tata just wants to hit it with a physical. It is a Ragnarok, but not enough MP for a crit or a proc. Gonna try it again. Still hitting for 2,000 a strike. Not the worst thing in the world, but it could be 4,000 a strike plus opportunities for a flare proc. Just gonna swing away. Not interested in those MP crits or those flare procs. Those all take money. Not money, sorry. MIPS. MIPS and money. They're effectively the same thing. Anyway, Shadar Nook is down for Scott Tata. He can move on. Still a couple other bosses to beat on the way, but if everything goes good, we should hopefully have Scott Tata able to finish this race before we have to move on to our next scheduled broadcast. We do have, for those of you interested, a Legend of Zelda 1 randomizer tournament race coming up in the next 10 minutes here on Randomania number 1. So we're hoping Scott Tata can finish before then, but if not, it's a little bit more important that we get over to that one there. This race has already been decided, but this tournament race is going to be very, very huge. We have our own Randomania awesome host person. Dark Flav, I believe, is the name. If I got that wrong, you can slap me in the face. You can virtually slap me in the face, etc., etc. And unfortunately, I have not been informed as to who his opponent is. But all I can say is that there's going to be some good Zelda 1 randomization races going on here in the next 10 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, all awesome humans and potential subhumans, we still like you. Stay tuned. That's going to be happening. But in the meanwhile, Scott Tata has advanced to Final Kefka. maybe we will see our potential 4th place finisher finish this thing up before we move on to some glorious Zelda 1 randomizer. Gatata, knowing what's going on, only picks his top 4 characters. You might lose one here or there, but if you know what you're doing, generally the strategy in this randomizer is to only level and power up the characters you know are going to be useful to you, not just in the final fight, but on the way there as well. So based on the characters that we've seen, not just from Skatata, but between all 4 players, Terra is the no-brainer. She is the most powerful character in this game and also has the most, well, is tied with the most plot progression checks of any character. Cyan only has... Actually, Cyan does have 5 plot progression checks, but you have to go through one place to get 3 of them. But that place you go through unlocks all of his sword skills, and they can be quite useful. We never saw Celes in this seed, but she's another one of those automatic best characters. And the other character we did not see in this seed, who is usually just one of the best, is Shadow. Not because throw itself is a ridiculous technique, which it is, but you find so many weapons that you're never going to use that Shadow has all the ammunition in the world, and on top of that, his floating continent checks are always guaranteed to give you progression. But I digress. Skatata is going to hopefully finish this thing off before we get into the Zelda 1 randomizer tournament matches here. Skatata got a little bit of work to do here if we're going to finish in time here, but we're going to sit back and cheer him on in the meantime. We've got that there reverse polarity, moving his dudes around. Electing to use a Super Ball. There's some damage. Strago is going to cast all the flare spells in the world now, it looks like. This is the key for the first form of the final battle. As long as you can get rid of the head first, you don't have to eat a Quake counterattack, which probably kills most of your whole team unless they're floating and or immune to it / absorb. You know how it goes. It's a really nasty counterattack. Kill the head first. Now, the long arm in this fight is vulnerable to instant death, which is not something that we saw any of our racers in this entire seed have access to. Cyan's cleave would work, but we haven't seen anyone at least try that yet, surprisingly enough. But whenever Cyan has a Ragnarok, maybe you're more comfortable swinging with that just as is. A Ragnarok and fixed dice, apparently. This is a really weird combination of weapons for Genji Glove. You'd be better off with just the fixed dice on its own. But we're not going to judge Skatata too harshly. He's almost done. If he can finish this in the next 4 minutes before the Zelda 1 tournament race, then he can finish it. Looking pretty good for Skatata here, but unfortunately, as much as we want to watch this finish up here, and one of my greatest friends ever, LOZ Cards fan, just hanging out in the chat here. Unfortunately, we do not quite have the time to let Skatata finish this off. Here on the main Randomania channel, we do have a scheduled tournament match in the Legend of Zelda 1 randomizer match taking place in less than 3 minutes. So we unfortunately are going to have to go over to that. I just want to say, though, that Skatata is not going to lose to Kefka. If you want to watch the finish, you can watch him on his own channel. And then come back here for some Legend of Zelda 1 goodness. Yes. My name is Jackamus Wedge. Thank you for joining us this fine Saturday evening. And I'm just going to leave you with this one piece of advice. Let's go, Bruins!